Chains of Flesh and Flame. The Trials of Heracles. Chapter 1. Blood for Redemption. There was a time before the blood, before the madness, before the gods demanded everything. In that time, Heracles was just a man, born of Alcmen, made monstrous by Zeus, tolerated by Olympus, and feared by mortals who caught the steel in his voice and the weight in his step. He laughed then. He loved. That ended with the flies of madness. It began with whispers in his sleep. Hera's curse, subtle and seething. Heracles dreamed of serpents in cribs and found himself waking to the screams of his sons. A wife's blood on his hands. A cradle smashed like pottery. No memory. No mercy. The world didn't care for explanations. The hero had become a butcher. He walked into the woods, alone, blade at his throat, ready to end the tale. But the gods weren't done with him. Apollo's oracle found him first, in Delphi, burning like a fever dream. "Go to Tyrants," she said. "Place your strength in the hands of the coward king. Let your flesh be broken. Let your name be bled clean." Tyrants was stone, walls too tall for the wind to touch. Inside its belly sat King Eurystheus, a man with the soul of a rat and the smile of a vulture. He wore his fear like perfume and spoke through trembling lips. "You will serve," he said, voice tight. 12 labors. If you survive, the gods will lift your curse. If you fail, they'll forget you. He said it with a smug curl, thinking Heracles would protest. But Heracles just knelt. "I am already forgotten." The first night, they gave him no bed. He slept on stone with the dogs. The guards whispered about him, murderer, madman, spawn of thunder. He didn't speak. His dreams were too loud. His wife's voice, the drip of blood on baby skin, the roar that split his soul in half. He wept without tears. The forge was being lit inside him. The next morning, Eurystheus stood atop his marble throne and read from a scroll with exaggerated flair. "First," he said, "you will slay the Nemean Lion. Its skin is invulnerable to blades. No spear, no arrow, no axe will pierce it." Heracles looked up, just once. Eurystheus expected fear. Instead, he saw a man already halfway to death and walking forward. As Heracles turned to leave, Eurystheus called after him. "Oh, and Heracles." The hero paused. "Don't die too quickly. I'd rather enjoy the long decline." Heracles said nothing, but in his mind he struck the king dead 100 ways. He would earn his redemption in blood and pain. 12 trials. One name. He would wrench godhood from the hands of those who spat him out like a defect. Not for Olympus, not even for himself. For the ghosts of the innocent, the ones he failed. Chapter 2. The Lion of Nemea. The Nemean Valley didn't breathe. The trees there stood like petrified witnesses, their bark charred, their leaves long since burned to ash. Villages on the edge of the forest had gone silent. No birds, no dogs, no children laughing in the olive groves. Only bones remained, picked clean, scattered in trails that led back to the cave at the valley's heart. The lion's den. Not a lion exactly. Something older. Something divine, born from the twisted hate of Typhon and Echidna, shaped not by nature but by divine spite. Its hide could not be pierced by iron, bronze, or fire. Its breath smelled of rot and war. And in its eyes, flame, unnatural and patient. Heracles walked into the valley barefoot. No armor, no sword, just a bow across his back and a club carved from olive wood, its head bound in iron, its shaft wrapped in blood-stained cloth. The air felt wrong here, thicker, heavier, like the world didn't want him there. He tracked it for a day, then another. It circled him, watched him from the brush, mocked him with half-eaten carcasses left where he'd sleep. The lion did not fear. It understood what Heracles was, and it wanted to see him break. On the third night, he found the cave. The entrance was gnarled and blackened, littered with cracked skulls and bones gnawed through like soft bread. Heracles lit a torch and stepped inside. The heat hit him first, wet and rancid. The second thing was the sound, a growl so low it vibrated his ribs. Then the eyes, two burning coals reflecting his fire back at him. The lion was already awake. It lunged. Heracles rolled left. Its claws scraped the wall, cutting stone like butter. He struck with the torch. It hissed, not in pain, but amusement. Flames rolled off its fur like rain. Heracles drew his bow, knocked an arrow, and let it fly. Clang. It bounced. The second arrow broke in half. The lion leapt again, jaws wide. Heracles dropped the bow and caught its front leg mid-air. Its momentum sent them both crashing to the ground. Dust and bones exploded outward. He screamed, not in pain, in rage, as he punched it in the throat, once, twice, 10 times. Nothing. The beast rolled him. Its fangs scraped his shoulder. Blood flowed. He grappled it, limbs locked in a primal war. His club gone, bow shattered, arrows useless. Only hands now. The lion snapped. Heracles shoved his forearm into its maw, felt teeth graze bone. With the other hand, he reached, found a shard of rib bone in the dirt, stabbed it into the lion's eye. It roared, and for the first time, it bled. He used the opening, slammed the beast's head into the cave wall, over and over. His fingers found its throat. He gripped tight. The cave filled with the sound of choking and bone grind. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Then, silence. Heracles stood, blood-drenched, gasping. The lion was dead, but his arms were torn, his side shredded, his bow destroyed, and the corpse before him could not be skinned. Not by blade, not by fire. So he did it the only way he could. With the lion's own claw, he peeled the hide from its corpse. He wrapped it around himself. A cloak of defiance. A mantle not given, but earned. The next morning, he returned to Tiryns. Eurystheus took one look at him, blood-slicked, eyes hollow, a lion's face draped over his shoulder, and fled to hide in a bronze jar, buried in the palace courtyard. He would speak through messengers from then on. But Heracles had no need of words. One labor down. 11 to go. Chapter 3. The Hydra of Lunar. The swamps of Lunar stank of rot and silence. No birds, no frogs. Even the insects refused to hum. Heracles stood at the edge, boots sinking into the mud. The reeds hissed like snakes. Black water rippled with unseen movement. Overhead, the sky sagged with stormlight, thick and breathless. The Hydra lived here, a creature of Hera's own breeding, born of chaos, fed on fear. 9 heads, some said. Others claimed more. All venomous, all regenerating. Cut one down, 2 more rose. Its breath could blacken trees. Its blood could kill gods. This wasn't a beast. It was a punishment wearing scales. Heracles didn't speak as he entered the swamp. He gritted his teeth and wrapped his lion skin cloak tighter across his shoulders. He carried a sword on his back, a torch in one hand, and the weight of the first kill still thick in his bones. He wasn't alone. At his side walked Lolaus, his nephew, young, loyal, clever, not a fighter, but smart enough to carry oil and fire. "You don't have to come," Heracles muttered. Iolaus shrugged. "Someone needs to burn the stumps." Heracles allowed a faint, grim smile. The boy understood. They tracked it by the stench, sulphur and rotting meat, bones half sunk in the water, a stag twisted in death, its ribs melted like wax. Then ripples, then bubbles, then silence. Then the heads rose. Not 9, not 10, 12. Eyes glowing, teeth serrated. The central head was larger, wider, plated in bone. It screamed, and the air shattered. Heracles didn't hesitate. He threw the torch, blade already drawn. He charged. The first head lunged. He ducked, slashed, severed it mid-neck. Blood hit the swamp with a hiss. It boiled the water into steam. But even as it fell, 2 heads burst from the stump. They screamed louder. Iolaus gasped. "They grow back!" "I know." Heracles fought like a storm. Blade flashing, cloak dragging through muck, eyes wild with fury. He cut down 1, then 2, but they kept multiplying. Fangs tore into his shoulder. Another raked his thigh. He dropped the sword, grabbed a fallen branch, and swung wildly. "Fire!" he shouted. "The stumps! Burn them!" Iolaus moved fast, drenched the soil in oil, lit it with his torch. As Heracles fought, Iolaus followed, torch pressed to each writhing neck, burning the wounds shut. The smell was unbearable. Burnt meat and bile, holy venom cooking in the air. Head by head, they turned the tide. But the central one, the Alpha, watched. It didn't strike. It waited. When only it remained, it hissed a laugh. Then it spoke, not with words, but thought. A voice slithering through Heracles' skull. "You cannot kill what is born of your sins. You strike and it returns, like your memories, like the blood on your hands. You think this is labor. This is reflection." Heracles snarled. He grabbed the central neck with both hands, ignored the venom sizzling his arms. He ripped it from the body. Iolaus was already there, pouring oil. Flames rose orange and black until the swamp itself glowed with infernal light. The Hydra screamed, and then nothing. Ash, steam, bones. Only Heracles remained, soaked in blood not his own. He dropped to his knees, fists clenched in the mud. Later, they carried the Hydra's corpse back, just the central head, wrapped in cloth. Its blood still dripped. It would burn any man to touch it. It would kill a god. Heracles kept it, not as a trophy, as a reminder that strength without strategy is just violence. That monsters don't die unless you understand how they live. And that some heads, like memories, grow back unless you burn the roots. Chapter 4. The Hind of Serenea. There are beasts that demand battle, and there are beasts that demand respect. The Serenaean hind was the second kind, a creature of divinity, beloved by Artemis, golden-horned, hooves like polished obsidian, faster than arrows and silent as falling snow. It lived in the groves of Chaeronea, far from men, untouched by war. To harm it was to invoke the wrath of the goddess of the hunt. And yet, Eurystheus had ordered it captured, not slain, taken alive. The king's smug satisfaction came not from the difficulty but from the paradox. Heracles could kill, he could bleed monsters and crack bones. But restraint, that was the real test. The journey north was long and cold. Forests bent low with mist. The ground whispered beneath his feet. Heracles wore his lion skin cloak, but left his weapons behind. A sword was no use here, only silence, only patience. He hunted for a year. Seasons passed, leaves goldened and died, rivers froze and thawed. He saw it once, its flank glowing in twilight. He gave chase. It vanished into fog. Another month passed before he glimpsed it again. By the third sighting, he understood. You don't catch the hind by force. You wait. You earn its gaze. He stopped chasing. He began to follow, from a distance, through whispering woods and sacred streams. He left offerings at Artemis's altars. He mended broken trees where his presence had scarred the grove. And slowly, The hind allowed him closer. On the final day, it stood across the river, golden horns gleaming in dawnlight. It did not flee. Heracles crossed the water on bare feet, slow and reverent. When he laid his hands upon it, it did not buck. It only blinked. He bound it in soft cloth and vines, made a yoke of leather, and led it gently through the woods. No chains, no cage. But before he could leave Cereneus' borders, the sky cracked. Artemis appeared. She stepped from moonlight, her bow already drawn. "You dare touch what is mine," she said, voice calm, but thunder rode behind it. Heracles bowed. "I was tasked, not by choice. Do not lie to a goddess. I sought only to prove I could do more than kill." Her eyes searched him like knives. Then she lowered her bow. "You have shown restraint, but I will not allow you to keep it." Heracles nodded. "Let me present it, then I will return it to your woods." Artemis studied him a moment longer, then vanished. Heracles returned to Tiryns with the hind. Eurystheus reached to seize it, but Heracles did not release the reins. "The goddess demands it be returned. I am the king. You are not a god." And for a moment, just a flicker, Eurystheus saw what it meant to stare down unmoving mercy. Not fire, not rage, but a calm will sharpened into iron. He backed down. Heracles released the hind. It vanished into the trees. 3 labors down, 9 to go. But this one didn't end with blood. It ended with self-control, the kind forged not by war, but by choice. And even the gods watched him now, closer than ever. Chapter 5. The Boar of Erymanthos. The Erymanthian mountains were carved from winter's breath. Snow swallowed sound, trees grew sideways from the wind. Wolves kept their distance, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because something older roamed there, something monstrous, not divine, not cursed, just perfectly brutal. The Erymanthian boar was no sacred symbol. It was a beast of muscle and rot, tusks longer than a man's forearm, eyes like cold iron. It didn't kill to feed. It killed because it could. A hurricane on hooves. Heracles was told to bring it back alive. No spear, no blade, no mercy. He ascended the mountain in dead winter. Cold bit through lion skin and flesh. Wolves circled. A blizzard loomed. No gods answered his prayers. This was not a divine test. This was man versus rage. In a village at the foothills, an old woman stopped him. "You go to die," she said. "The last hunter it gored was found with his ribs inside out." Heracles looked her in the eyes. "Then I'll come back wearing them." He tracked the beast by ruin. Shredded trees, blood-stained snow, a frozen stag split in two. And then, at dusk, a roar that cracked the mountain's throat. It came charging from a ravine, steam pouring from its nostrils, snow exploding under its hooves. Heracles held his stance. The ground trembled. He dove to the side. The boar slammed into stone, shattering granite. He struck with a tree branch. It snapped in half against its hide. This wouldn't be a hunt. This would be a war of attrition. Days passed. Heracles stalked the beast through white-out winds and bloodied trails. He baited it with traps, lured it into pits. It escaped each one. He tried to break its legs with fallen logs. He tried to wear it down with cold. He tried to outlast it. But the boar never tired. By the 5th day, Heracles was bleeding from a gash in his thigh, frostbitten at the fingertips, and running out of will. He collapsed near a frozen stream, vision dimming. But as sleep came, he heard it, snorting. Closer. The boar had followed him. It stood across the clearing, breath fogging, flanks heaving, not charging, watching, almost like it understood. Heracles rose, limping, dropped his club. "Come then," he rasped. "Let's end it." And as if hearing the challenge in his bones, the boar lunged. He waited, not moving, until the last second. Then he sidestepped, leapt onto its back, and wrapped his arms around its throat. The snow exploded around them. It bucked, slammed into trees, spun in madness. Heracles held on, through broken ribs, through torn muscle, through hours of thrashing, until finally it fell, not dead, but heaving, rage drained. He bound its legs with stripped bark, tied it to a makeshift sled, and dragged it back down the mountain step by brutal step. When he reached Tiryns, blood-caked and blue-lipped, the guards screamed and fled. Eurystheus again hid in his bronze jar, too cowardly to face what Heracles had become. The beast was chained in the courtyard, still breathing, still wild. Heracles stood over it, fists clenched. He didn't smile. He didn't rest. He just watched the snow melt in its breath and nodded. Another labor done. But something had changed. This wasn't a man anymore. This was a storm with a spine. Chapter 6. The Stables of Augeas. The gods had laughed when they heard it. Not because it was funny, because it was cruel. Augeas, king of Elis, had a stable full of sacred cattle, divine beasts, blessed by Helios himself. But the stables hadn't been cleaned in 30 years. Filth rose to the rafters. Rivers of rot and dung ran beneath the floorboards. The smell could knock a vulture out of the sky. Eurystheus ordered Heracles to clean it, not as a task, as a humiliation. When Heracles arrived in Elis, the stench hit him like a fist. His lion skin cloak did nothing. His stomach turned. The ground near the stables oozed. Flies moved in clouds thick enough to block the sun. Augeas greeted him with a smirk, lounging on a throne of polished marble. "Ah, the son of Zeus, come to shovel my filth." Heracles said nothing, but his fists clenched. The king leaned closer. "Clean it all, in one day, without magic, or I tell Eurystheus you failed." A trap. Heracles knew it. But he nodded. He walked the perimeter in silence, measured the weight of 30 years of divine manure. The sacred cows watched him with golden eyes. Flies bit his skin. His boots sank to the ankles. This wasn't labor. This was a message. Even now, they thought they could break him. He took a deep breath, regretted instantly, then set to work. But Heracles didn't touch a shovel. Instead, he went to the two rivers that ran beside the palace, Alpheus and Peneus. He drove his fists into the earth, carved trenches with his bare hands, and redirected the rivers themselves. The water roared through the stables, tearing through decades of filth in minutes. Dung dissolved, walls cracked, sacred cattle scattered in shock. The stench vanished under the force of a flood. By sundown, the stables gleamed. Heracles stood in the wreckage, soaked, bleeding, silent. But Augeas was not a king. He was a worm in robes. He refused to honor the agreement, refused to pay Heracles, claimed it had been a trick. He laughed before his court. "You're strong," he said, "but not clever. No reward for cheaters." Heracles did not strike him. He left, but his eyes said everything. Years later, Heracles would return. He would tear down the palace. He would slaughter the king and burn the throne to cinders. But not yet. For now, he returned to Tiryns, caked in dried river mud and fury. Eurystheus declared the labor invalid, claimed Heracles had used help. Another insult, another twist of the knife. Heracles didn't respond. He only stared. And though the king hid behind his bronze jar, he felt the weight of that silence. He felt the crack forming beneath the marble of his rule. Chapter 7. The Stymphalian Birds. The marsh of Stymphalos hummed with menace, not from insects, not from frogs, but from blades, faint metallic sounds that rang like 1,000 knives, unsheathed in the wind. The birds were already watching. They weren't animals. They were weapons, crafted by Ares in some long-forgotten war, beaks of bronze, feathers like razors, eyes like burning coals. Heracles stepped into the mire, and the air moved. They screamed. Arrows were useless. Their wings deflected steel. Every time he took aim, they vanished into the clouds. The marsh sucked at his feet, and above they circled, waiting. Then they dove, 3 at once. He rolled aside, felt a feather slice his cheek. Blood hit the water. He didn't grunt. He smiled. He couldn't outshoot them, couldn't outrun them, but he didn't need to. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the gift Athena had left him. Crotala, bronze clappers forged by Hephaestus himself. He slammed them together. The sound shattered the marsh. The birds screamed. They dropped from the sky in chaos, wings spasming. Heracles was already moving. Club in hand, he swung with fury. Crushed one, crippled another. He moved like war-given shape, methodical, brutal, exact. By sundown, the waters were red. The survivors fled east into exile. Eurystheus called it a minor triumph, claimed the birds were barely beasts. But Heracles didn't answer. He only left the broken feathers on the palace steps. They were still wet. Chapter 8. The Cretan Bull. Crete was burning when he arrived. The bull had razed 3 villages already. It was not sacred, not blessed. It was madness made flesh, a gift from Poseidon twisted by arrogance. Its breath steamed like geysers. Its hooves shattered stone, and its eyes held no soul, only endless motion. It could not be reasoned with, could not be worn down. It moved like a storm on legs. Heracles didn't try to outpace it. He waited in its path. When it charged, he didn't dodge. He met it head on. He grabbed its horns, drove his heels into the earth, and held. Bones cracked. Its. But he held. They fell together, crashing into a ridge. It bucked, kicked, screamed. He gripped tighter. The bull collapsed beneath him, not slain, but spent. He wrapped it in chains and dragged it back, not for pride, for proof. Eurystheus tried to hide his awe, ordered the bull released out of fear it might go mad again. Heracles didn't care. He had learned one thing from the beast. Sometimes the only path is through. Chapter 9. The Mares of Diomedes. Thrace reeked of rotting meat. The mares were not horses. They were cannibals, sacred to the warlord Diomedes, who fed them the flesh of prisoners. Their eyes were wild, their teeth blood-stained. They didn't fear man, they only hungered. Heracles fought through the guards with bare fists, stormed the stables and opened the gates. They charged him. He didn't flinch. He grabbed one by the neck, slammed it into the stable wall, broke another's jaw with his knee. They swarmed him, bit him, bled him. He endured. Then he did the unthinkable. He took Diomedes himself, still alive, and threw him to the horses. They fed. And when they were done, they were calm, horrified, maybe effective, completely. The mares were bound and delivered without resistance. Chapter 10. The Girdle of Hippolyta. The Amazons were warriors, not beasts, and Hippolyta was their queen, wise, strong, proud. Heracles was told to take her girdle, a symbol of her divine rule. He came with respect. She welcomed him. They spoke like equals, warriors. She offered the girdle in peace, but Hera would not allow it. She disguised herself as an Amazon, spread lies of betrayal. War erupted. Heracles fought, not with joy, but with grief. He killed warriors who didn't deserve to die. Hippolyta tried to calm the chaos. An arrow struck her in the back. She fell into Heracles' arms, her eyes wide with shock. He took the girdle, but not in triumph. This was no victory. Only another weight added to his soul. Chapter 11. The Cattle of Geryon. To the edge of the world. Erythea, where the giant Geryon ruled, 3 bodies, 1 will armed in crimson bronze. He had Orthrus, a 2-headed hound, and a herdsman with eyes that bled fire. Heracles arrived with nothing but his bow. He killed Orthrus with a single arrow. The herdsman fell next. Geryon came with thunder. The battle shattered cliffs. The sky wept flame. In the end, Heracles drew his bow, dipped an arrow in Hydra's blood, and fired. It pierced all 3 hearts. Geryon died, cursing the sky. The cattle were driven home, not a single one lost, not a single tear shed. Chapter 12. The Apples of the Hesperides. The apples were guarded by 3 things. The Hesperides, daughters of the evening. A serpent coiled around the tree, and Atlas, holding up the heavens. Heracles found Atlas first, asked him to fetch the apples. "I will," said the Titan, "but only if you hold this." Heracles took the sky. Weight unimaginable. Time melted. Atlas returned with the apples, smiled, and said, "I'll deliver them myself." Heracles smiled back. "Take the sky again, just for a moment, while I adjust my cloak." Atlas agreed. Heracles stepped away, took the apples, left the Titan screaming. Chapter 13. The Fire at Olympus. His last labor, to descend into Tartarus and bring up Cerberus, the Hound of the Dead. He went alone. No light, no blade, only will. He found Hades. "I ask for your beast." "You may take him," Hades said, "if you take him as he is. No chains, no weapons, just strength." Cerberus lunged. Heracles caught 2 heads by the neck, drove his knee into the 3rd. Blood ran, flesh tore. He held on until the beast broke. It followed him out. The dead watched in silence. When he returned, Eurystheus screamed. The labors were complete. The gods whispered. Zeus descended, lit the pyre himself. Heracles burned, but the flames did not consume him. They revealed him. His scars turned to light, his bones to golden marrow. He rose, no longer mortal, no longer burdened, only eternal.